Under pressure, she delivers clutch serves, strong, precise, and far more effective than we've seen from her in previous matches. Alex keeps sending the ball back with depth and precision, forcing Noskova to hit one extra shot every time, and that's where the difference starts to show. Noskova's aggression begins to break down under pressure, while Eala's consistency remains rock.
Just days before the Porsche Tennis Grand Prix in Stuttgart, Germany was set to begin, Alex Eala stepped onto a quiet practice court and faced Linda Noskova, the very same opponent who had humiliated her only weeks earlier at Indian Wells. And this time, everything changed. She didn't just respond, she dismantled her, convincingly, dominantly, almost ruthlessly, with no trace of nerves, no hesitation, just sharp, commanding tennis on clay that echoed like a warning through every corner of the Stuttgart grounds. It wasn't just a practice result, it was a message, clear and impossible to ignore. And Leylah Fernandez, who was set to meet Eala in the very first round of this prestigious WTA 500 event, felt it, whether she admits it or not, loud and undeniable. Because the reality is simple now. The Filipino star is coming, and she is arriving in the form of her life. But to really understand what's at stake here, you have to zoom out, because the context makes this moment even more intense. The Stuttgart Opens isn't just another stop on the calendar. It's one of the most stacked tournaments in the entire WTA season. World number 2 Elena Rybakina is in the field, alongside Coco Gauff, Iga Swiatek, and Jasmine Paolini, a lineup packed with the biggest names in the sport, all converging on Germany for this elite indoor clay battle. And right in the middle of that storm, Leylah Fernandez looked at her draw, and on paper, it seemed manageable. Alex Eala ranked roughly 20 spots below her, a matchup that suggested control, experience, and advantage. On paper, Fernandez should be the favorite. She has more experience on clay, a higher ranking, and a history of performing under pressure on the biggest stages. But that's where the illusion begins to crack, because the version of Alex Eala stepping into Stuttgart is not the same player from a few months ago, not the one still searching for consistency at the highest level. This version is different, sharper, more confident, tested under pressure, and playing with a rhythm that feels almost unstoppable. And that final practice match against Noskova wasn't just a tune-up. It was the clearest signal yet that something bigger is building beneath the surface, something that could turn this entire draw upside down.
Their first ever meeting in singles competition. This matchup carries added intrigue as Fernandez, who has Filipino roots, has established herself on the global stage, highlighted by a runner-up finish at the US Open.
Marking their first ever meeting in singles competition, this matchup arrives with a quiet intensity, carrying an added layer of intrigue as Fernandez, with her Filipino roots, has already carved out a place on the global stage, highlighted by that unforgettable runner-up finish at the US Open. But to understand why this moment feels bigger than just another match, you have to go deeper, into what happened before, into the story that's still unfolding beneath the surface. Because this isn't just about a training session, it's about momentum, memory, and something personal. At Indian Wells 2026, Linda Noskova faced Alex Eala in the 4th round, and what followed was nothing short of brutal. Noskova didn't just win, she dominated, closing it out in straight sets, 6-2, 6-0, a scoreline that speaks louder than any analysis ever could. It wasn't competitive, it wasn't close, it was one-sided from start to finish. Eala was shut down completely, her rhythm stripped away, her game overwhelmed by relentless power and pace, leaving her searching for answers that simply weren't there on that hard court. And those are the kinds of losses that don't disappear. They stay with you, they follow you back to the practice court, pushing you into longer hours, sharper focus, and a hunger to rewrite the story. Fast forward to Stuttgart, same opponent, but everything else has changed. New surface, indoor clay, new conditions, and a completely different version of Alex Eala stepping onto the court. This time, she didn't just win, she flipped the narrative entirely. She dominated Noskova with authority, turning that painful memory into fuel, proving that what happened at Indian Wells was never baggage, it was motivation waiting for its moment. On the clay in Stuttgart, Eala controlled everything. She dictated the rallies, set the tempo, moved with fluid precision, and struck the ball with a confidence that never allowed Noskova to settle into any rhythm. Yes, it was a training match. No ranking points, no official record, but in professional tennis, what happens in those final days before a tournament often reveals more than any stat sheet ever could. And right now, Ayala's level looks dangerously high. That win over Noskova wasn't just revenge, it was a statement, delivered with style and purpose. And a psychological victory like that, right before the tournament begins, can be priceless. But that moment didn't come out of nowhere. It was built step by step over a preparation week that feels almost unreal when you look at it closely. Because Eala wasn't just practicing, she was testing herself against the very best in the world and rising to the challenge. One day, she shared the court with Coco Gauff, world number 3, reigning US Open champion, one of the most complete players on the tour. And it wasn't just the quality of the hitting that stood out, it was the energy, the ease, the way Eala carried herself as if she belonged there, not as a newcomer, but as an equal. Gauff offered advice in those unscripted moments, tactical insights, positioning tweaks, the kind of knowledge only elite players can pass on. But Eala didn't shrink in that space. She didn't look overwhelmed. She absorbed it, worked with it, and responded with a quiet confidence that reveals just how locked in her mindset really is. Then came the next day, and somehow the level only rose higher. Eala stepped onto the court with Iga Swiatek, the 4-time French Open champion, the undisputed queen of clay, the ultimate test for anyone preparing for the surface. Because Swiatek doesn't just rally, she exposes everything. Your movement, your defense, your ability to construct points under pressure, your capacity to handle heavy topspin that punishes even the smallest weakness. And Eala held her ground. She didn't fade, she didn't break, she competed. And then, almost as if to confirm everything, she went out and dismantled Noskova in the very next session. One day with Gauff, the next with Swiatek, and then a dominant performance right after. This isn't coincidence. It's a build towards something bigger. And when you bring Gauff back into the picture, the story becomes even more dangerous. Because earlier in 2026 at Indian Wells, Eala and Gauff faced each other in the round of 32, and Eala won. She took the first set 6-2 and was leading in the second before Gauff was forced to retire. But make no mistake, Eala was in control from the start. She neutralized Gauff's weapons, dictated the match, and was already moving towards what would have been one of the standout results of the season. The win stands, and it matters. So when you see them sharing a practice court in Stuttgart, exchanging advice and smiles, understand that this is no longer just admiration. It's respect between two elite competitors who know exactly what the other can do. And that belief, the knowledge that you can beat a top 3 player in the world, that's the kind of confidence that
3 player in the world. That's the kind of confidence that changes everything. It carries you through pressure, through long rallies, through the moments where matches are decided. It makes you dangerous. Which brings everything back to Leylah Fernandez, standing on the other side of the net, preparing to face this version of Alex Eala in the first round of the Stuttgart Open. Fernandez is no stranger to big moments. She has the experience, the fight, the clay court ability to make this a real battle, and she cannot be underestimated. But the challenge in front of her is unlike anything she has seen recently. She is about to face a player who just dismantled Noskova in practice, who spent the week going toe-to-toe with Swiatek and Gauff, who has already beaten a top 3 player this season, and who is carrying a wave of momentum that feels almost unstoppable. Whether Fernandez admits it or not, the pressure is real, because Eala isn't arriving as a hopeful underdog searching for a breakthrough. She is arriving ready, confident, and building towards something that feels inevitable. A storm is forming on the clay in Stuttgart, and its name is Alex Eala. Now the question is simple. Can she take this momentum and turn it into a deep run, or is there another twist waiting just around the corner?